Welcome back everyone to another video on the Vixen Victory channel. Today we're going to be talking about Iansan, really going through and looking at her as a character, talking about her build guide really quick, and then also going over everything that she has to do in her kit, as well as how to build her, and then looking at teams and constellations as well. Now with Iansan, she's basically our next Bennett. Now for the longest time, Circle Impact has been a thing, and at that point that means basically we've been constantly using a lot of the same characters, and Bennett being one of those for years. Now the thing with Iansan, I do want to say really quickly before we get into anything, is really saying with her is that she's not going to be an absolute replacement for Bennett, but at the same time she does actually have some pretty good usability to be there in place of Bennett in certain scenarios. At the same time, you can use her instead of him, just in case you kind of need like an attack buffer on both sides of like the Abyss or something, but she's not an exact replacement for him. Obviously, and honestly, in my personal opinion, I think that is a good thing, considering we can have a little bit of difference between different characters. Now, also, if you guys haven't noticed, my throat is not doing too well. I am a little bit sick, actually, so that is actually why this video is a little bit late. Hopefully, my voice is going to get better over time, and we'll be doing well. Also, I'll be trying to do a few streams this week as well, and also next week, I do have some people coming in, some friends and family, so hopefully as well with streams and whatnot. Streams might not be a huge thing, but I'll try to do some videos to kind of counteract that idea. But I would love to stream this week, and I actually have another friend that I've been playing with a little while, so she might be popping in as well for some of the stream times as well. But anyways, getting all that stuff out of the way, and hopefully my voice allowing me to talk fully throughout this entire segment, let's go ahead and jump right into Iansan. Now, looking at Iansan and specifically the talents, obviously when you are in the trial in the events page, you're going to see 888 on all of these. In my personal opinion, the normal attack is not something you have to level at all. If you want, you can go right ahead, but nothing that she does here is actually going to be extremely good or a good idea in my personal opinion. Now, at the same time, keep in mind, you are getting like this extra Swift Stormflight damage hit in the normal attack. So if you really want to, basically a very big part of her kit is using her skill and then going right into this special Swift Stormflight like plunge. So she kind of does like a charged into a plunge type thing, and this increases that damage the more you level into it. So technically it can be helpful and it can be good if you care about that personal damage, but honestly, in my opinion, I don't really feel like the level up is really honestly worth it for it. And yes, it could be pretty good once you get to 6, 8, and possibly even crowning it, but once again, I think that the biggest parts of her kit is going to be her skill and her burst, which we'll look at a little bit later. As you can see here, her burst being the highest, her skill being there, and then obviously her normal attack being the one that you want to just level if you really want to. Now, looking at her skill, the probably second biggest part of her kit, we're looking at this, basically you're going to dash forward with using her skill, and she'll gain 54 Night Soul points. If she's already in, like she already has her Night Soul state going, then you can get 54 more Night Soul points, but that's just something to keep in mind. Really quick, looking at her Night Soul limit, it is 54 as well. It's a little weird that it's not like a 60 or a 50 or 55, it's just kind of 54, but you know what, I'm not the maker of the game, so I'm just going to keep going. Within 5 seconds after using your skill and going into the Night Soul Blessing state, using a normal attack will trigger one quick Swift Stormflight Stomp from Iansan that will not consume stamina. So once again, if we go back here into your Night Soul state, back into the normal attack, while in the Night Soul Blessing state, Iansan's charge attack will be transformed into the Formidable Swift. So honestly, all you have to do really is hit the normal attack button and you'll immediately do this plunge base or this charge attack. So you don't even have to do any like hold on the charge or anything like that. Your charge attack, your normal attack is going to turn into it. So instead of having to do a charge attack and hold the button, you actually only have to do the normal attack, which will still trigger the Swift Stormflight. And that's going to be pretty helpful once we look at some later stuff in her kit as well as Constellations. Now, looking at the Night Soul Blessing state, if she runs out, she's going to, get out of her Night Soul Blessing state. If she uses the skill again while she's in the Night Soul Blessing state, she'll also cancel her Night Soul Blessing state like any other Natlan character, and then she'll increase her movement speed. We've all kind of seen her and Varessa have that really increased movement speed. Kind of goes in line with like the cardio and the working out kind of idea of the tribe. Also, holding sprint will switch Iansan to rushing thunderbolt mode. That's kind of when she like does the little run that you kind of saw in a weird kind of funny way. This just reminds me of the guy from Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs, like the cop, which if you just immediately just start running like this, I don't know why it reminds me of it, but it just does. Anyways, that's the idea with her actual running. Now, it does use up a lot of your Night Soul points and goes pretty quickly, so it's not something like Varessa where you can kind of just almost infinitely just kind of keep running, especially when you have those the phlogiston to run into. So honestly, I would say that it's not going to be as good as Varessa, especially since she has 2 charges of her skill, whereas Iansan only has 1. But it is nice to have a little bit of the extra terrain running around. In this mode, Iansan can fly leaps using terrain, so she can jump really high and far just like Varessa can, or consume additional Nitso points to move on water, or Liquid Phlogiston, while also being immune to the damage that Liquid Phlogiston would put her in. So same thing that we saw from Varessa and even a character like Mualani. So that's kind of how that is right here. The skill does do a pretty good amount of damage, so in my personal opinion, that initial damage hit is still pretty good, so that's why it's worth it to level it, honestly. I really just haven't gotten to that point because I went from about 4 mil and built both these characters, and I am brokey to brokey on the, Bennett scale of things, or Zhongli, I should say, so that's at least the idea with the skill. You can level this. I would honestly keep it the same level as the burst, at least get it up to level 8. If you want to get to 9 and 10, that's up to you. But the one that has the most precedence and probably the highest amount of actual priority is going to be your burst. The reason why is because you're getting your huge attack buff here. Same thing with Bennett. Your burst is going to be the thing that you're focusing on the most. So with using her burst, she's going to deal Nitso aligned AoE electro damage, and then she whips out her limited edition kinetic energy scale. That's basically her huge weight that she pulls out. When this skill is used, Iansan will gain 15 Nitso points and enter the Nitso blessing state. When the kinetic energy scale leaves the field, Iansan's Nitso blessing state will end. Now, keep this in mind. In my personal opinion, what I would do here is I would use your burst and then your skill. Keep in mind that the burst is only giving you 15 out of your maximum 54 Night Soul points, so what you would really want to do is use your burst and then your skill, and then do that kind of like normal attack, that plunge really quick, and we'll get into why a little bit later. Once again, that's the reason why is because if you use the skill first, you're kind of using up you're already using up like a lot of your Night Soul points that you might have at the plus 54. So my personal opinion, using the burst and then the skill kind of maxes out the ability of the buffs that you're going to get later, as well as what you're getting here, because you're still maximizing the amount of Night Soul points that you're in, allowing you to still have the buff for the attack as long as you're in that Night Soul blessing state. The kinetic energy scale will follow the character around, boosting the attack of your current active party member in different ways, based on Iansan's Night Soul points. If Iansan has less than 42 Night Soul points, the attack bonus will be based on her Night Soul points and the attack. If Iansan has at least 42 Night Soul points, so 42 to 54, the kinetic energy scale will switch to the ardent support state, in which the attack bonus will be stronger and based on her attack alone. This is why I would say, once again, also to do the burst and then the skill. Additionally, the skill will log the distance your current active character has moved so long as it is active, restoring Night Soul points to Iansan every second based on the distance moved in the previous second. Another great reason why a lot of moving characters are going to be really, really good with Iansan, because you're now allowing Iansan to get more Night Soul points, which, if she's back on a lot more Night Soul points, she can stay above that 42 threshold a lot easier, giving you a lot more of the attack, as well as helping you a little bit more with actually, giving you more of that buff. Now, at the same time, the scale will disappear once her Night Soul Blessing state ends, and it will also disappear after 1 second when you are not in a state of combat. While it is active, Iansan's Night Soul Blessing state will not end, even if she is not on the field, so that allows her to be that off-field kind of capability and using her burst and having that buff off-field. Once again, the more you ascend into her, the more you can level into her burst is going to be the better. Your conversion rate is going to be higher with both the Night Soul points and the attack, so that's obviously going to be better. You do have a pretty good attack bonus here, and something that we don't see in Bennett, you actually see a max attack bonus here, where someone like Bennett can just increase his base attack as much as possible. Keep in mind, Bennett is based off of base attack, not his attack. That's why you can actually level him into energy recharge and HP percent for better heals, but honestly, all you care about with base attack is going to be like the feather, his level of his character, and then also the higher base attack in the weapon, which is why a lot of people use Aquila Favonia. Now, something to keep in mind here is that with his max attack bonus, or Iansan's max attack bonus, because this is based off her regular attack, I think that's why they actually had to give it a full out maximum, because attack can just be scaled infinitely. So that's something to keep in mind and make sure that you're doing that with it. Now, also keep in mind when we're looking at the passive talents here, after the Swift Stormflight hits opponents, which is that normal attack after you use the skill, Iansan will gain the precise movement effect for 15 seconds. Basically, with a precise movement, your attack is going to be increased by 20% for Iansan, and whenever she regains Night Soul points through the kinetic energy scale in her elemental burst, she'll gain an extra Night Soul point. So another helpful reason to give yourself more attack, which is helping your buff a lot more, because once again, it's not base attack, it's just regular attack. You're technically doing more damage with Iansan, and you're getting more Night Soul points back, which is also helping your active character have that buff for a longer amount of time. Additionally, when your current active character party member consumes or restores Night Soul points, so she works great with other Natlan characters, the extra Night Soul points Iansan gains the next time she restores Night Soul points via the scale will be increased to 4 instead of the 1. This effect can occur once every 2.8 seconds. And also this will expire once her Night Soul Blessing state ends. That makes sense. So a lot more extra Night Soul points, and an even more if you're using another Natlan character, so she works exceptionally well with a character like Varessa. Looking at the next passive talent, it states that when a nearby party member triggers a Night Soul burst, Iansan will gain the warming up effect for 10 seconds. During this time, when Iansan restores at least one Night Soul point, she will heal your current active character for 60% of her attack. So giving yourself more of those Night Soul points, which you're already getting from this passive, as well as when you're using your burst and your skill, is going to be healing the active character as well. So once you switch off from them and you're able to do some extra hits with those Natlan characters, you're giving yourself more Night Soul points, which is a longer attack buff, and you're giving herself technically more attack because of the first passive here as well, and you're also healing the active character even if Iansan's not in the field. So in my personal opinion, that's just absolutely crazy. This is every 2.8 seconds, and you can only gain it every 2.8 seconds for the 4, which I think is just absolutely insane. So I really do like everything that she has to do with all of her buffs. Her kit is really just easy. And a lot of the stuff in the background that you're seeing here, you don't really have to understand. Just basically follow a very simple kind of run of things, just her normal kind of rotation. And besides that, everything kind of handles itself pretty easily, which is another great thing to have in a support. Now, when we look at weapons, most people are going to be thinking initially that you're just going to have to go for high base attack. That's exactly what you do for Bennett, so that must be what you do here. And honestly, that's not what you're really going to have to do in the first place. Her best weapon is going to be Favonius Lance. Now, I know Favonius, I don't have this leveled all the way up, and I definitely will at some point, but obviously she's on a level 70 on my end. But honestly, getting her Favonius Lance is going to be her best weapon. Getting her a lot of those extra particles, making sure her burst is always coming back is going to be a very top priority, as you can kind of see with her run. Now, usually with her, you're running like double electro teams, so getting those particles back is going to be a little bit easier because you're running the double electro, so that resonance is going to help out. But when we look at here, she does have a pretty high energy cost at 70, so you are going to want to keep that in mind when you're running her, making sure that you're having a pretty good amount of energy recharge. Now, there are some other weapons instead of something like Favonius Lance. Let's say you're like me and so many characters want to use it that you're like, you know what, I don't have any extra Favonius Lances, or maybe, you know, too many characters are just running it, you don't have extra refinements like I do or whatever, and you're like, you know what, I'd rather just switch to a different weapon. You can actually use the old, I believe this is an event weapon, or maybe it wasn't, but honestly, this weapon right here is going to be exceptionally good. Reason why is because you're increasing your attack by 20% and the movement speed by 10% for 10 seconds when using an elemental skill. This weapon is just absolutely insane. It's an energy recharge main stat, has a pretty good amount of attack when you get to the base attack, when you get to level 80 and 90, and you're also increasing your attack and movement speed when you use your skill for 10 whole seconds, which is another absolutely insane thing. Giving her more attack is helping her give more attack for other characters. So once again, this weapon is just absolutely insane. I really do like this weapon. Even though I know that Favonius Lance is technically the better weapon, I really do think that if somebody has this on her, I think it's just as good. Now, I can definitely be thrown at the stake for that, but I do think that that definitely has a lot of precedence for the weapon. Now, there are other energy recharge weapons you could go after, or even other attack weapons that you could go after. When you go for the Missive Wind Spear, it states that within 10 seconds after an elemental reaction is triggered, attack is increased by 24% and elemental mastery is increased by 96%. So if you have this to a higher refinement, very nice and very good. At the same time, when you trigger a reaction, you're already having an attack percent main stat, and you get some more attack with the ability. So having her high attack is going to be pretty easy. At that point, though, you're probably going to be running an ER Sands just to make up for a lot of the energy loss that you're kind of losing out of, and then you're going to want to make sure you get a lot of energy, honestly, with her build. So there's plenty of other weapons that you can use, energy recharge main stat weapons, attack percent weapons, but honestly, in my personal opinion, these few are going to be the best. You could run something like the catch, but the ability isn't really that great. It is nice to get the extra, burst hit and make it even crit, which is kind of cool just to have on your support character, but characters like Xiangling or even possibly Raiden, if you don't have Raiden's personal weapon, are definitely just going to be better with the catch, and so honestly, I wouldn't really say to really steal that away from them. Even if you don't have like Raiden or even Xiangling, then I guess you could use this, but at that point you still want to keep in mind if you get one of them later, they're definitely going to want this weapon more than technically Iansan would. Looking a little bit past the weapons though, let's go ahead and look at artifacts. Now, looking at artifacts, the only 4-piece set that I would really say that you should be using is Scroll of the Hero of Cinder City. This set basically states that when a nearby party member triggers a Night Soul Burst, the equipping character regenerates 6 elemental energy. So, very, very good. The more Natline characters you have, the better. So, honestly, when you have another Natline character here, you're giving Iansan more energy, making that 70 cost into a 70 or a 64 cost. Also, with all the extra energy, it's going to be extremely helpful for her. Looking at the 4-piece, it states that after the equipping character triggers a reaction related to their elemental type, all nearby party members gain a 12% elemental damage bonus for the elemental types involved in the elemental reaction for 15 seconds. So, when you create a reaction with anything else here, then you're going to be able to get an extra elemental damage bonus, which with a lot of the teams that she's going to be running in is going to be helping her and her on-field character. Also, if the equipping character is in the Night Soul Blessing state when triggering this effect, all nearby party members gain an additional 28% elemental damage bonus for 20 seconds. So basically, you have a 40% elemental damage bonus for 2 different elements if you create a reaction with Iansan. I honestly think that that's just insane, and I think that that's very, very good, so it makes a lot of sense to run this set with her. Now, a lot of the times with some of the other characters in the team, some of the other characters might be running this set already, and so you want to keep in mind with her, maybe with the other characters, maybe they can switch to a different set. Now, if you're running somebody like Shilonen, technically you could run a different set that might be actually useful, just so that you don't have those 2 sets kind of clashing against each other. You could run Archaic Petra in the meantime, creating that crystallized reaction, giving yourself a damage bonus as well. So if you have multiple characters with Scroll of the Hero of Cinder City, they can't actually get the same like buff here. So you can't get like 40% from Shilonen and Iansan, or Iansan and whoever else. So you want to keep that in mind. And if you want to, you can switch another character to a different set. In my personal opinion, I like my characters on their sets, so I rarely ever switch them. But honestly, that could work for you. Now, if you're running her with, like, let's say Chevreuse, I know Chevreuse in recent times has been really, really good on Scroll of the Hero of Cinder City. If you already have, like, a previous set that you already had her build on, like I did, like a Song of Days Past set, that's kind of actually what I switched to instead while I use the Iansan, just to make life a little bit easier to have 2 different sets, still giving damage buffs to the active character. Now, looking at main stats here, we have attack percent, and attack percent. Now, you can either do this if you have enough energy recharge like I have here. I already have a pretty good amount of ER that I really like. I have her at 190. It feels really, really good, and I get her like when I run double electro, I get her burst pretty easily, pretty consistently when I actually run this, so I don't really have too many problems with it, especially with Favonius Lance. While I'm critting at the same time, I'm also getting some particles back, which honestly isn't really triggering too often, and I have some extra ER that I'm not even technically getting here. So once I get this to, like, let's say level 90, I'm gonna be at almost, I believe, 200 to 195. So at that point in time, I don't really have too much of a problem with running this specific weapon and obviously the triple attack sets. Now, at the same time, if you're running triple attack, once again, make sure that you're almost at that 200 mark. That's really what I would say for double electro. If she's the only electro in the team, then you're going to want to run 200 plus ER on her. So at that point, I would probably switch over to an ER Sands, probably switch over some things as well in the abilities and everything that I have here, just to make sure that I have a pretty good amount of energy recharge to make sure that she does fine and well by herself in that set. At the same time though, when we look at the goblet, attack percent is the way to go. Now looking at the circlet, if you have like an ER Sands, then you're going to want to go for an attack percent circlet. Even if you have something like me, like you have Favonius Lance, honestly, it's really not going to be that extremely helpful. If you have like energy recharge on the subset on your circlet, it's going to be even better. In my personal opinion, I just feel like that's the way to go. If you don't run an ER Sands, it's going to be attack, crit rate. Now, that could be just for some extra damage, but in my personal opinion, no matter what, I still do 110% believe that you have an ER Sands, you need to run double attack on these 2 parts, because honestly, that attack buff is going to be better than the energy recharge that you get. Now, I know that people are going to be saying, well, you need the energy recharge to make sure you're having your burst, but honestly, at that point, I would just say to farm the set a little bit longer to make sure you get some energy recharge on every single set or every single piece that you're actually running with her. Now looking at the extra feather, you can see how I have energy recharge on every single piece that I have here. That's exactly what I would definitely recommend a lot of people do, especially if they're running like me, the triple attack. I just made sure that I had as much energy recharge as possible with her on as a character. So that's really the way to at least build her when we're looking at artifacts. Now let's go ahead and look at Constellations. Now her Constellations are absolutely insane for a character of her caliber, being a 4-star. Her C1 and her C2 are great, and honestly the C2 is absolutely stellar, and especially once we get to the C6, it's all absolutely insane as well. Looking at the C1, it states that when Iansan is in combat and is in the Night Soul Blessing state, she will restore 15 elemental energy for every 6 Night Soul points she consumes. Very, very good considering you get some extra elemental energy, making that burst a lot easier to go after. This is another reason why I don't have to worry too much about energy, is because of this C1. Keep in mind, this can only trigger once every 18 seconds. So honestly, you're really only getting probably one of these. You're only really getting like the 15 elemental energy like one time during a rotation. But keep that in mind with the extra energy you were getting somewhere else. I believe it was about 6 elemental energy on top with the artifact set. So now you're actually at 21, which is basically making your energy cost like 49 rather than anything else. So I really do think that the C1 really helps with a lot of those energy helps. Now looking at the C2, it states that when using the elemental burst, Iansan will also gain the precise movement effect from her passive talent for 15 seconds. Additionally, if Iansan is off the field while precise movement is active, she will also increase your current active character's attack by 30%. This is the biggest part probably of this C2. Yes, using your burst allows the extra buff that you're getting here, the extra attack increase that you get for her, and then all this extra stuff with the extra Night Soul points and increasing her Night Soul points over time. And when you have, Night Soul bursts actually hitting, your Night Soul points are going up. Now at the same time, you're also getting this attack buff as well. C2 is just absolutely insane. The C3 increases the level of the skill by 3, and the C5 increases the level of the burst by 3. So it does take a little bit of time to get that extra buff to the better talent, but it's definitely worth it. Looking at the C4, it states that when the kinetic energy scale in your burst is present, Iansan will gain 2 stacks of Surging Force after your current active character uses their elemental burst. Basically, once Iansan uses her burst, any character after that uses the burst will give Iansan 2 stacks of Surging Force. The stacks that this gives last until the scale leaves the field. Basically, her bursting leaves the field. And the Surging Force can be gained once per scale summoning. So you can only get this one time, so it's not like you can stack this with the other 3 characters all using their burst. Whenever Iansan restores Night Soul points via the scale, she will consume 1 Surging Force stack and restore 4 additional Night Soul points. So now you're getting 4 on top of a previous 4 that you could get on top of the previous 1 over time that you can get. You're basically allowing yourself to stay in that Night Soul Blessing state, which is giving you that attack buff from the burst as well, longer period of time, which is giving yourself, your active character, a lot more time to stay and get that a lot more damage. So if they are a longer lasting character, a character like Sino, a character like Arlecchino, that are more long-winded, if you will, over time and like to stay on the field as long as physically possible, this really does actually help those characters. And especially if you can kind of mix and get everything correct around what you're doing with them, this definitely does do a lot for them. Additionally, if her Night Soul restoration from the scale overflows, Iansan will gain 50% of the overflow the next time she restores Night Soul points via the scale. Once again, just another insane part about the C4. Each constellation that she has, probably besides the C3, are just absolutely insane. Now let's get to the C6. The kinetic energy scale's duration is increased by 3 seconds. Additionally, when Iansan triggers Night Soul point restoration, if there is any overflow, she will gain the extreme force effect, which increases the damage dealt by your current active character by 25% for 3 seconds. So you're getting a longer duration on that scale, on the burst basically that you're getting, and you're getting some extra damage increase already just from the C6 as well, which you're getting from initially from the overflow idea from this as well. Iansan will gain 50% of the overflow the next time she restores Night Soul points as well. So you're getting like another 50%. Let's say you restore 4, you're getting actually 6. So that's insane. If you're overflowing past the 54, now you're getting some extra, you're getting just an extra buff. Even if the buff doesn't like last as super long, like 3 seconds, 3 seconds is actually still insane. That's a good Iansan plunge, or possibly 2 if you can technically time it right. So that's just absolutely insane in my personal opinion. If you can really get that, that's a couple normal attacks from Arlecchino. That's probably a pretty good burst hit or one of those skill hits from Sino. It's a really, really good damage hit for a lot of those extra characters that you could be using with Iansan. So very, very good constellations. If I had to say anything, with this banner, you can't really lose. A lot of people wanted Chevrolet at C6. Getting some extra Iansan cons is not bad at all. And even Ga Ming is a really good 4-star DPS character. Now, the thing is the characters on here as well. If you have like Shan Yun and you have Varessa already, it's really not worth it to go any further, considering I don't believe their constellations are too worth it. But I definitely do think that getting the constellations for these 4 stars, if you guys can, is definitely worth it. So if you can, and if you're low pity on a 50-50, like on a 50-50 and you don't have a guarantee, I definitely think throwing some extra temples in to maybe try to get some constellations isn't really actually bad for this character. Now let's go ahead and look at some teams. With Iansan, honestly, just because she's an attack scaler, she's going to work with basically any character that can work with attack. Now that could be plenty of different characters that you might know and love, characters like Raiden that are electro characters. Same thing with like Yae Miko if you have her as an on-field DPS for some reason. Cloran also works well with her, especially on an overload team. If you have any of the attack scalers, even someone like Wanderer. Wanderer does exceptionally well just because of him flying around. Giving him some extra attack buff is great. It also follows him around, so he doesn't have to stay glued to the Bennett burst. A lot of these characters might move around a lot, and so sometimes you might be kind of worrying about staying inside that Bennett burst. That's a great thing about Iansan, it follows the active character. Obviously, in general, this is going to be the best combo that we see. Varessa is absolutely insane. Now, when I talked about Iansan with or Varessa in my last build guide, I talked about how much I just found myself wanting to put Varessa with Iansan. And when Iansan wasn't in the team, I was finding ways where I just wanted her in the team, where I was like, you know what? And I just like got off the team and immediately found my next like run with Iansan already in the team as well. So absolutely insane together. Also, because of Iansan really wanting another like not Natlan character that uses Night Soul in there already, that is something to keep in mind. So if they use Night Soul points and they are specifically a Natlan character, now I know a future character that might be coming out is not going to be Natlan specific. They are going to be a Fontanian. I'm talking about Escoffier. She doesn't use Night Soul points because she's not technically a Natlan character. She's actually a Fontanian character. So even though she released during this time period, she is actually a Fontaine character. But really, even still, if you use a character like Shilonen, let's say with your Sino or with your Cloran or with your Raiden, throw another character like Shilonen in there, or throw Kachina or something in there where you have another Natlan support character or even DPS character that uses Night Soul points, because you're going to want to make sure you're triggering that Night Soul burst for her effect. Also, when they are consuming Night Soul points, she gets a lot of buffs and activity from her passives. It's just way more useful if you're using another Natlan character in the team. Also, it brings the cooldown of that Night Soul burst triggering effect, which can help all the Natlan characters, because the more that's triggering, the more passives that can be triggered as well, helping damage, helping supportive capabilities. It's honestly just a great all-around effect. But once again, honestly, you can use this on so many different characters, it's not even fair. I've even thought about using her with Eula just because of the idea of obviously Eula and a character like Femine really do like superconduct. Technically, you could also use this with Razor just because they are physical characters. So having like Cryo and Electro together is absolutely insane, just to see the really big attack buff that Eula can get at the same time of happening and helping superconduct. So you're not like using a C6 Bennett burst and then kind of making your Eula kind of do like pyro hits instead of physical hits. Now you actually have an attack buffer here that can kind of take his place, throw in another Electro character, maybe a Cryo character or whatever, just to really give a lot of buffing and really see what your Eula can do. There's so many different, honestly, instances here where you can use different characters. I talked about actually with Malwika and Arlecchino. I talked about Arlecchino, sorry, before, and honestly, Hu Tao could also work as well. But in my personal opinion, actually, someone I'm a little bit very, very happy about, I even shouldn't say a little bit, I'm very happy about is going to be Malwika. Now, before I talked about in my Malwika video that yes, I know that with Malwika and Auron in the past, you could make that like overload team work. Throw Shevers and Bennett, throw Auron in the team, you could technically make that overload team work. And I know I got a lot of backlash when I said that I didn't really like it too much, and a lot of people were saying, well, it still does work, it's still good. I never said that it was going to be bad. It was going to be like absolutely useless and it didn't work. Obviously, you're triggering the overload effect and it still does work. But honestly, in my personal opinion, I was waiting for a character like Iansan, an Electro character that's a support that actually can work in a lot of different facets. And Iansan is that exact character. You're increasing a lot of the attack for Malwika, you're allowing and still triggering the effects that Shevers can give because it's only Electro and Pyro characters, and she's actually just useful in this team. Now, I know Auron is still a good, useful effect for those characters, especially because he's using up those Night Soul points, but honestly, because of his entire effect, usually you want to do Electro Charged. Not to say that he can't use his effects because it is based off of some other things as well, but usually Electro Charge just fits better for him and more consistent. So I was just waiting for Iansan to come out of this. So a really, really good team that I can't wait to actually see in action for a lot of you guys is going to be these two characters plus like a Shevers and a Bennett. Shevers is already on the banner as well, so you probably already have a Shevers, you already probably have an Iansan. You can definitely see some pretty good kind of teams faceted with that. Hopefully you guys have a Bennett so you can slap in with Malwika. if you guys don't have like an extra Bennett to really run in the team, I know people have kind of stated that before, just run another Pyro or Electro character like Fischl or like a Beidou just for shielding, or even a character that is a little bit off the cuff, character like Xiangling who's more personal damage. Just as long as you're getting another Pyro Electro character in there that can kind of still be useful, maybe a damaging character, maybe a supportive character, as long as they're fitting into that fray. So honestly, once again, as you can see, there's plenty of different teams. I know I focused mainly on like Overload or even just straight up pure Electro teams, where a team like this is going to work exceptionally well. This is really good team that I think would, and I have used, has worked really well. Once again, I've done it in the Varessa team as well, the Varessa build guide that I did. You could even switch this over into a little bit of a different team using like the Overload with like Chevreuse and Bennett. So you could switch this over to this team as well, seeing a pretty good happenstance with these 4 still characters. But I do think that overall, obviously, once again, making sure that she's at least fitting with like one Natlan character. So even if you do like this team, make sure that you're still throwing another Natlan Night Soul using character in the team just to make that a little bit more useful for you. Now, I know I've talked about how you can run without Bennett, but technically there are plenty of opportunities where you can stack the attack buffs from both these characters and still get an insane amount of attack buff for your on DPS character. So I still do think that that is still very useful, and honestly with the Overload teams, you're practically always going to use Bennett in the team as well, so that also allows you to use her as well with Bennett. Honestly, there are just so many teams that you could use. I could really just go on and on. The Overload teams, honestly, you could even run a different team with like an Electro and a Dendro character.
exactly?
You could run this with Cyno and run her and Cyno together with like some supports like Nahida and Dendro Traveler or Baiju or Yao Yao, just to have an extra healer in there. Iansan is a good healer, a little bit here and there while she can, but at the same time I still think it's better to just run a natural regular healer, just because her healing is kind of like Chevreuse. It's just not like a Bennett level or like a Xianyun level or an actual healer level, so having an actual healer in the team is definitely going to benefit you more. Now, Alhaitham and Iansan can work. Throw another Electro character in there for the double Electro, double Dendro. Honestly, that's going to work exceptionally well. If you have Cyno in this place as well, just run 2 Dendro characters, give that extra elemental mastery buff. You have the attack buff for a character like Cyno, for Alhaitham, for Tighnari even. Throw Tighnari with Raiden or something like that so you can have the consistent amounts of help from far distances. Honestly, I just think that that's going to be the best for you. These are absolutely insane teams, and honestly, Iansan opened up a lot of capabilities for a lot of other teams, especially when we're talking about things like Aggravate, Quicken, and Spread, as well as specifically Overload for a lot of newer characters, like we have characters like Malwika, just fits a little bit better within their kind of their feel, and even a character like Cloran and even Varessa, how they move around so much. Honestly, that just helps a lot more by having that attack buff follow them. So that's really what I would say for a lot of the teams that I would get and use with Iansan. If you guys have any other teams you guys are thinking about, have used, let me know down in the comments. I'd definitely like to hear more about it.
Care for a dance?
Everybody stand!
Dance with me!
US! On my mark! Quick as a flash!
The show's only just begun.
Justice o'clock!
Not done yet.
Cake!
The curtain
Charge!
falls.
Smash down! Let's light it up! I'm going in! Justice will start the clock!
Controlled breathing.
It's justice o'clock! Yeah! Oof! Volcano kablam! Headbutt! Teamwork is dreamwork! On my mark! Quick as a flash! Charge! Yeah!
Care for a dance?
Gray cloud convert!
Dance with me!
Let the mountain's veins boil! Start the clock!
Be a good
Quick as a
audience,
flash.
won't you?
Smash down!
The curtain
Yeah! Oof!
falls.
Look out below! Hey! Yeah! Yeah! Heads up! Hey! Yeah! Make way for the... Let engraved names echo! On my mark! Control... Headbutt! Hey! Yeah! Look out below! Charge!
Care for
Rise
a
with the
dance? Dance with me!
Let's move!
Be a good audience, won't you?
Pyroclastic surge!
Not done yet. At least you were here to watch.
Incinerate! Hands where I can... Start the clock! Faster! Strong! Final warning! Teamwork is drill! Light of the blazing sun! Justice will prove on my mark! Everybody stand the pyroclastic surge!
Care for a dance?
Mind the side effects.
Dance with me!
Seems like an emerge.
Right now. Emerge. Right now. Let's move!
The show's only just
Deflect.
begun. The curtain falls.
Come on now. Right here. Right now. A sight to behold. Emerge. Right here.
Remember, health comes first. A bit of notice.
On my mark! Quick as a flash!
Flicker. The process of elimination.
Show them. Emerge.
Taking a turn for the better.
Start the clock!
Mind the side effects.
Come on now. Right here. Faster. Stronger.
Seems like an emergency.
Let's move!
Scatter.
Well, that's everything I've got talking about Iansan. If you guys did like the video, please go ahead and like and subscribe. Thank you guys once again though, and honestly with Iansan, I'm super happy to see what we really can get from her. I really love to see how much she's been helping a lot of other characters. A character like Malwika, like I stated before, I've been waiting for so long to get an actual better help when we're looking at like an overload team, and putting her with Iansan is just going to be really, really fun for I think me as well as plenty of other characters as well. If you guys did like the video, once again, please go ahead and see other content. If you guys have thought about any other build guides, I've definitely been throwing those out. I'm also going to be streaming, honestly, a lot of different games. I've been really enjoying a game called Stranova recently. I've done some Assassin's Creed gameplay. I've even looked at some like Monster Hunter games that I've been playing as well. So I've definitely had a lot of bit different kind of jump around. But because I'm sick right now, and then next week I have some like other things to take care of, I'm going to be trying to stream a little bit this week, because next week I'm not going to be doing too much, and I'll be trying to flip around some other build guides that you guys can actually get with that future as well. And we're definitely going to be getting a Sean Yun build guide here in the next week as well, or possibly in the next few days. So once again, thank you guys so much for watching the video though, and I'll see you guys in the next one.